Welcome to the Journal Editorial Report. I'm Paul Gigot, and we begin this week with the assassination of Charlie Kirk, the 31-year-old Turning Point USA founder and father of two, was shot dead Wednesday on the campus of Utah Valley University, the latest act of political violence to strike the United States. President Trump paid tribute to Kirk on Thursday during a Pentagon ceremony commemorating the September 11th terror attacks.
Charlie was a giant of his generation, a champion of liberty, and an inspiration to millions and millions of people. We miss him greatly, yet I have no doubt that Charlie's voice and the courage he put into the hearts of countless people, especially young people, will live on.
For more, I'm joined by longtime Wall Street Journal editor and columnist Dan Henninger. Dan, good to see you. You wrote an editorial some years ago after an episode of violence called No Guardrails, where you attributed the decline of the traditional guardrails on social behavior and cultural norms that normally would be something that would stop some of these people who are disoriented from committing acts of violence. Is that what we're still looking at here? Is that how you explain this?
I don't think there's any question, Paul, that is what we're looking at. The guardrails are still down. And that editorial was written quite a while ago, about 30 years, and nothing much has changed.
It's gotten worse.
It got worse. Well, its argument was that elites in academia and media argued back then that people should be able to express themselves any way they wanted, do what you want to do with whoever you want to do it with, and all of the normal traditional norms and guards of family, school, and so forth were less important than people doing whatever they wanted to. And they did. The problem with that was that these elites who made these arguments, and even today, the people in politics on social media, they themselves have tremendously deep reservoirs of psychological strength. They're able to do it. They're in combat. But at the margins, the people who wallow in this stuff sometimes do not have those psychological reservoirs of strength, and they're the ones who go over the edge of the highway or the cliff, and like a Luigi Mangione.
Right.
Almost all of these people who commit these things are psychologically destabilized, and many of them gravitate towards violence and the idea of assassination. So, yeah, we have let the guardrails down, and we have to find a way to put them back up.
Mangione is accused of shooting the health executive on
Manhattan.
the streets of Manhattan. So one of the things that's most disconcerting here, if you look at what pollsters say, is that the tolerance for violence, the willingness to abide violence against political opponents is stronger among young people in particular. Not older generations so much. But a lot of young people think, you know what, if I disagree with you and I find your views appalling, yeah, sure, we can use violence against you. How much do you think that the universities are to blame for this?
I think the universities are a primary source of this problem, Paul. It goes back to the beginning of speech codes, which were set up, believe it or not, in places like Harvard Law School. And the idea was that certain phrases and ideas were simply too hurtful to people, and so they should be stopped. That then morphed into conservatives showing up on campus to talk, as Charlie Kirk did, and being run off campus. I mean, these were extraordinary events. Crowds would come, shout people down. Charles Murray, the sociologist, famously was driven off a stage at a school in New England. And the intensity of those protests became stronger and stronger. And in fact, the idea of protest is what became most common. You showed up, you shouted, you screamed, and that was kind of an expression of violence as well. And it wasn't. Then we came to the anti-Israel protest last year at Columbia and many other universities, which got extremely violent. And so the escalation just kept getting higher and higher and higher, and it shouldn't be surprising that we now find ourselves in an environment where real political violence is becoming more the norm.
Well, political violence is an unknown in American history, and you and I lived through the 60s when we had the assassinations of Robert Kennedy, Martin Luther King Jr., and others. How is this era different than that, or is it all too similar?
I think the similarities are what should concern us. 1968 was an awful year. There must have been 9 or 10 events, any one of which would have been like the Charlie Kirk assassination, enough to unhinge a country. There was the Bobby Kennedy assassination, Martin Luther King's assassinations, Vietnam and the Tet Offensive, LBJ withdrawing from the presidency. There were urban riots across America, Chicago, Los Angeles, Cleveland, Washington. It has been established that many of those neighborhoods that burned never recovered from that. And the Democratic Party had a very difficult time recovering from its anti-war personality back then. Richard Nixon got elected, eventually Ronald Reagan was elected, and it took a long time for the political system to dig out from under 1968. And I would say after the last several years, starting with George Floyd, Luigi Mangione, the anti-Israel riots, now this, we have kind of compressed 1 year into about 3 or 4 years, and that we are on thin ice once again.
Any signs of optimism out there, Dan?
I do have a couple of signs of optimism. One, there is some evidence, Paul, that the younger generation, the post-pandemic generation of young people coming into college now who sat out for 2 years, are fed up with this extreme rhetoric on both sides. We had a terrific editorial in the Journal just in the last day or so. Duke, Missouri, Oklahoma, even the Citadel, where students are saying we have got to figure out a way to sit down and discuss these things in a rational way. And I think those younger people are fed up with both the right and the left. And I think the answer to it, Paul, is the Charlie Kirk solution, which is free speech. Engage, rediscover the beauties of free speech in the United States.
All right, thanks, Dan. Appreciate it.
Hi.